cynical.
It would be nice to have a little set of testicles. Hello and welcome to Mystical Cynical. My name is Daren.
I'm Jamie.
Daren?
Jamie.
How are you doing?
Well,
Why were you late today?
there was a traffic jam at the sink.
Yeah, I mean you've been early recently,
Yeah.
and I just noticed. All right, Jamie's gonna be late, and what that was 2 months ago when we started, that being late was like me getting upset.
Yeah.
And me just sitting here all like fucking glowing and like buzzed and just like could not care less that
You're right.
You were late.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that was the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair, I didn't take my walk today.
Uh-huh.
And I got up kind of about an hour and a half before the podcast. And normally I'm up about 3 hours before and I get a walk in. There's all this life.
Yeah.
And I cut that short today because I was up a little later, reconnecting with Lacey
Oh, good.
after a long period of a flurry of activity.
Was
this
yesterday
podcast
date
and-
day?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
it was. And we took just a epic walk, many
A walk
miles
to remember.
Yeah. No, that's not going to be the title.
It already was.
Oh, that's
Part
right.
2.
Oh shit. Part 2. Yeah, no. So it was really great. I mean, to just air things out and like, reconnect with our innocence and just have fun and be in the spirit of how we got in the relationship to begin with.
Which was?
Just in a lot of wonder.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of, we were both working at that center and we were kind of like, I can't believe that this is happening, and individually. And then we would collide and
You
like,
can't believe this is happening, like that you're working with this amazing person? Or?
you know, it just like, well, no, 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 eventually that was certainly it. But it was just, we were both in these worlds where, you know, when you see rehab on TV or whatever, like, and you like I'd worked in other centers too, where it's just very stiff, and then getting to be myself, get her the company allowing her to be herself, and then kind of meeting each other as we were and not like work self, you know, we could really build a solid friendship while at work because we didn't have to like go, hey, we should meet afterwards.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And, you know, and get to know each other as friends. And so this friendship just builds and it's kind of that, you know, I mean, right now it's an extension of that. Certainly this life that we're in. I mean, having you next door and things are like showing up at our door, like these gifts,
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
from people who are listening to the show.
This tiny little universe, this cosmos we've created here on this corner that feels like, can I just get louder?
Oh yeah. Sometimes that happens. It's whatever it is. I know you've worked.
I just can't do this anymore.
No,
if
it's
anybody
good.
wants an internship with Mystical Cynical, please, maybe we could set you up in the backyard in a tent and you can just come out 2 days a week and help us out. Jamie needed to turn the lights on and he had to get up, and I was just like, this is too much for us.
We need to intern the lights on. That's what Daren said. It was good.
Yeah, I noticed, in my life, any relationship I've ever been in romantic relationship, was with someone that I worked with, because that's the only way I could truly show through a consistent, like, this is me, casual. Like,
Right.
You can, you know, as far as like being one-on-one dating with somebody, I mean, like, here's the pressure. It's you and I, and we have to show the best of ourselves and all these things that at work, I'm like, I can know that someone's kind of watching me. So I can be kind of like, you know, like do something cute and funny.
Yeah,
and be like,
right.
"Hey, you saw that, you
Oh,
know, just
no,
a little
totally.
more performative,
Yep.
but still showing your best side. And then having that, you know, the dates are scheduled literally on the work schedule. We're like, all right, we're going to work together and stuff. So
Yep.
I just wonder what that sort of stuff is nowadays, where no one's seeing each other anymore. And like,
Right.
how do you form a relationship with somebody? It just seems like the opportunities are a lot more.
Yeah, they are. They're harder to earn. But I think we're now, I mean, it's an interesting question for now because it's seeming like things are going back to some form of normalcy.
It feels like that. Yeah.
It does, doesn't it?
And I don't know if that's us making it happen or if it is like, I mean, who dictates that, you know, I mean, besides like the CDC and anybody saying, any governmental power saying like, okay, it's fine, go back to normal.
Ted Cruz is in charge of that.
Oh, here comes some hot takes. I'm going to be started on Ted Cruz. Yeah, it does. I agree. And I think that it feels like, to me, it's just like we've reached our wit's end and we're fucking going back to normal. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do or what, but
yeah, I think the people who hadn't been at their wit's end or hadn't acted as if they were are now having the space and the comfort to feel like they can be. And, you know, there are certainly those who, prior to things letting up, numbers going down, were just playing, like they were just super playing it safe, you know, and
the people
for good reason.
The people that wear masks while they're driving in their car.
Right. By themselves. Yeah. Yeah. God, I mean, and okay, so there's a story to that too. I go like, all right, well, are they on their way to pick somebody up?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
like I have to
analyze.
Yeah.
I pull over like, beep, beep. Hey, roll your window down. Why are you doing that?
Hey, roll your window down.
Yeah.
Roll your mask down.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, it's and we're obviously saying that as, you know, in jest, but it's whatever makes you feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, it's not to say you're completely out of the woods, but you have survived this extinction, this download that some people, you know, were sadly didn't make it through. And, you know, just to have, I'm sure you have an air of gratitude, but the problem with going back to things too quickly is that you forget where you've been. How quickly is that? You know,
For sure.
That we just forget how good life is in a moment, in the same way that like an iPhone is new for a day or two. And then it's just like the square in your pocket again, you know, and you're not like seeing the shine on it.
Yes.
You know,
The hedonic treadmill, isn't that what it's called?
is that what it's called?
I think it's something in that vein of how quickly things wear off.
Right.
You lose the level of appreciation or the level of the lesson, the gravity of the lesson that was supposed to come in. And just like you're saying, of just, well, let's get back to normal. This is basically saying, let's forget all the lessons we learned here and not, you know, have to integrate them. Yeah.
They call it, I've heard it referred to, at least in the recovery zone, is like they say, with alcoholism, they say the ism is incredibly short memory.
Oh, wow.
Like you just forget, you know, you forget how destructive things can be when you're loaded all the time.
What is remembering and forgetting in terms of, at least in your interpretation of how things are stored, and if they're stored? Like I was thinking about it yesterday around what we've talked about around, like I think David Lynch mentioned it, and I said Brene Brown had mentioned it. I've heard other people talk about us, you know, like you're saying, being an antenna. And so that presumably is, I was thinking about it today when I was uploading some files on my computer into the cloud, which means it's not stored on my hard drive. It's stored in the cloud, which is just another hard drive somewhere else. But this idea of a collective consciousness hard drive that we only have a limited capacity within our brain. So we're storing things that our brain files as important and relevant. And then the rest of it is kind of left up there, and we can draw in every now and then a new idea, kind of have it in and use it, turn it into something, into form, and then put it out into the world. But as far as what our capacity for remembering and forgetting, is there actually like a limited amount in there?
I don't know. And
no, you do. Tell me the answer right now.
Hold on, just wait a minute. I'll make something up. Well, I do. The interesting thing about memory that's coming up as you're talking about that is, you know, I was talking about this yesterday to someone where, I don't know if you've ever been around somebody who has dementia.
Or I haven't,
right?
Fortunately,
yeah. No, that is fortunate.
Terrifying, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's terrifying in the way that, like, I mean, the person who's going through it. I had a great aunt who was going through that, and then she would wake up in the middle of the night, and she would think that she's a younger version of her, and she wouldn't know who this old guy is sleeping next to her, and they're in their 60s or 70s or whatever, and just the yelling for her husband, yelling for when he's like right there, you know, and the fear and having to, how do you talk somebody down from that? One of the only positive beneficials that I've seen is that people who have been like, had soggy britches their whole life, you know, people have been like just a curmudgeon.
Yes.
When they go through dementia, of course, you would never wish that upon anyone.
They lighten the fuck up.
They do, because they forget what they're angry about.
Right.
Like there's, you know, it's memory that's doing all of our mood. You know, it's like the tally, I think, of like, you know, how many good experiences, how many bad, how many times you were left to figure something out on your own and nobody came to your aid. And enough of those, especially at an early age, you just become...
Are you like putting on various sheets of armor throughout your life until you're like that fully guarded, but your britches are actually soggy underneath all that armor, or you're just like, well, here I go, I'm fucking strong and I got this defense, and then as you slip, those start to kind of fall off of you, and you're just that, you know. Yeah,
and I think that people sometimes that armor is like taking up a constant smoking habit, so people stay the fuck away. You know, or
I didn't know. I'm going to try that
one. Or like, you know, just having your vices, because it's like, I mean, what alcohol and what drugs, you know, are to people who struggle with addiction is like it's like their best friend. It's the only person in their life that's always shown up for them to take them away from their feelings, and done so consistently that it's this relationship that when we break up with alcohol or drugs, it's like we don't grieve the loss of perhaps one of the more important relationships in our life. We just see it as, I was addicted, this thing's harming me, and now
do you think it's important to grieve a loss like that? Yeah,
it's a loss of
companionship.
It's you know, something, whatever it is, whatever the vice is, that's always been there for you and has always taken all your stories and has shown up, and then it turns on you at a certain point, just like all the other people in your life. And so you're really disheartened at that point. And that's why a lot of people, they either end their lives or they, you know, if they're lucky, they get sober and can have a good support group around and people who accept them for who they are. And it starts to repair, but it's a slow build because these meetings are like an hour long, hour and a half at most. And they're like once a day. So 23 hours of the rest of the day, you're kind of back in the heartbreak. And we don't know that we need to do that. And I encourage people to do that right away. Just like, hey, take time. This is a really significant relationship. It's more significant perhaps than any other romantic one you've had, because it's always been there for you. It took the place of a parent. It took the place of a best friend, all of that. And so these losses of identity are incredibly important to grieve and to have support around, because, you know, as I may have said on here, or I don't know, but you know, it's either here or in the work. Yeah, no shit. Okay, so the loss of identity. So there's somebody who's been high forever or drunk forever. They get sober. They put together time, and then if they relapse again, so that's an identity, the high and drunk person. Then you got the identity of a sober person. And it's like, okay, well, this is a seamless transition. Thank goodness that there's a sport around that's free and all that. So you go to that. And then if you relapse again, the psyche can't take all these losses of identity. So you go, who the fuck am I now?
Right.
And that's why there's a huge number actually of people who put together a solid amount of time and then go out and then just end their life because like I have to do this again. I have to find out who I am again. I have to lose.
Does that feel like it's a personal interpretation of identity, or are you concerned about what other people are going to, like, you're concerned for how you're going to be seen in the eyes of people, like, oh, he relapsed, instead of dealing with that internally? Does he think that there's a feeling of that disruption of identity within you that feels like tumultuous?
Yeah, I just think that we grieve human beings when they die, and these identities that we have are a being as much as a being could be. I mean, it's not a material being necessarily, but it has it has maybe even more than human beings are limited in their scope of what they're able to do for people. And I've often thought that like, I've got this feeling. I remember I did a funeral, and it's the only one I've ever facilitated or whatever the word would be. And it was pretty
DJ'd.
Yeah. DJ Bardo in effect. No. So, I did this in 2015, early 2015, and I didn't know the person, and the family was looking for somebody who was like a non-traditional, like minister or a spiritual person or something like that. And they got one.
I was going to say, bing bong, hello.
I asked,
Jean jacket, of course.
Yep.
Your most formal.
This is my nicest jean jacket. So I showed up in that and moccasins and, you know, and at the time when I was getting to know the family, this guy was a drug addict, and he was much more than a drug addict, but he was struggling with addiction, and he had a daughter that he couldn't show up for. And he was like, everybody said the things that people say about, you know, a lot of addicts, is that they're really beautiful people that just couldn't reach their full potential. This is kind of weird, but like right after meeting with the family once, I was driving home and I looked in my rearview mirror and I saw him, and it freaked me out. But then I turned it into, I don't know where this sort of intuitive know-how comes from, but I just was like, okay, don't be scared. Ask him how you can help. This is a very rare occurrence. Like if there is somebody riding shotgun with you, like they're there because they have a message to give you that can help. And the message that I got was, and I got to share this with the family. And of course it's like, take it with a grain of salt. And I prefaced it with like, you know, like, hey, I'm not saying that this is the case, but I'm just telling you my experience. You know, I asked how I could help. And when he said, the feeling I got was that I can do more on this side for people than I could ever do in my human shell.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it was a good message. And now I've just applied that liberally across the board for anyone. You know, I just get the feeling that there are people who have been strongly limited in this life, and they have this enormous love, and they're just not able to share it. And the world has hurt them maybe early on and made it to where that armor that you're talking about shows up, and now they can do more. They can open more doors. He could do more for his daughter in this case from that side than he could. You know, he was not showing up for her. And, you know, the daughter was like living with the grandparent, and, you know, he couldn't stop this cycle. And so that's my take on it now is, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that fits into the Tibetan thing of the Bardo with 49 days. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, with more study, I could figure it out. I know that there's some who just hang out in the in-between realm because they're shocked by their death. They don't get it. They're refused to move on. And so that's an idea around that too. So maybe maybe people are doing that. Maybe that's what a ghost is. Yeah. You know,
spooky.
Yeah. Speaking of ghosts, that sure was pretty good that we got yesterday.
Yeah. Do you want to plug it?
Sure. God, I wish I don't know how to say his last name. Is like Ermschweiler. Steve.
Sure that's it.
But listener, I think they're in Michigan. It looks like they have a farm life, and he's married to a woman who makes, and I just hope that I'm getting this right, but I'm going to do a post later on today, to thank them properly. But they sent us these shirts, and one of them is we each got this t-shirt that says keep your spirits high, and it's a ghost holding a joint.
It's perfect.
It's so great.
Yeah. The only thing that bothers me is that I didn't think of it.
Nice. Well, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of like a card deck of like, not tarot, but sort of like, like let it go as a message or whatever.
Prompts and stuff.
Prompts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the journal and all this great stuff.
Yeah. Thank
and
you so much for that. It's
It was amazing.
Anybody can always feel free to send us free things. It's the perks of being slightly popular is people want to send you stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And so anyway, to not get too far away from this, to this point, but, I was watching Wonder Shows last night, which is this great show, and it got triggered in me to remember it from listening. I was listening yesterday, and it had been a while, to Rob Lowe's podcast. And
would you like to give the name of that for everybody?
It's called Literally. And he had Zach Galifianakis on, and he was like, Rob was like, I'm obsessed with this Wonder Shows, and I can't believe that I missed it the first time around. And he's like, Zach, have you heard of that show? He's like, I was on Wonder Shows. But it's a show these two guys created that was on late on MTV. It might even been on MTV2 back in the day, but it's so drastically inappropriate. It's insanely inappropriate, but it's done by people who support the LGBTQ plus community and who are, against racism and like are on the side of, evolving culturally and, but they attack everyone. Basically. They just make fun of everything. And I got it on YouTube, and I hadn't seen it in years. And Lacey and I watched a couple last night. And there's this point in the show where it's like a Sesame Street, basically, that's wildly inappropriate. And it gives just the amount of time. Like, when stuff gets dragged out, like on skit shows, where it's just like, oh, if they would have just ended here. It's just the perfect amount of short, vastly inappropriate stuff, And one of the things is they ask kids, it's like, ask kids. And then these kids say these ridiculous things like, what is love? And one of the kids said, a neurochemical con job. And it was kind of like, I was like, Jesus, that really kind of, love is not that, but like, that's what a lot of people, it might be.
Well, it's this, it's the more cynic approach to something that feels, I often lean towards like, okay, what's the programming here is essentially to get us to just procreate and to propagate this,
right,
or perpetuate this species.
Yeah.
And so at the core of it, it is kind of a con job, is to get us to fall in love and have sex and just have another one. But within that, it's like, okay, well, that's the kind of the basic premise to get us to replicate. But what is the more important? What is the point of that? And I think that's where it leaves the cynic and goes into the mystic of like, okay, well, we're here to learn lessons, and we're here to spread love that isn't just sexual and like the greater thing. But there is, I think, at the core of it is just like, let's continue this because we have some kind of something to learn greater here. Yeah,
I think that what most of us think of as love, as we've talked about on this show, is like the possessive thing. I mean, you should really ask yourself, in love, like, is this something that I'm in the flow of, or is this something that I'm just trying to protect and possess? And I think most of us fall into the latter category, and if we're honest with ourselves, or have throughout our life, and maybe we're beginning to know a love deeper than that, which is generosity, or just the unconditional aspect is like, across the board, this regard that we have for someone. Like I'm thinking about like, in tragedy, people will run up to another person who's been hurt and they don't know them. And if they had a conversation, they might not agree on anything. And yet there's this urge in us to run towards someone that we've seen is hurt.
Yeah. And say, excuse me, what's your political affiliation? Okay, great. Are you okay?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we just need more tragedies to bring us together in this life.
There was this documentary called I Am. Did you see it? Mm-hmm. It's the
guy that made Ace Ventura.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was one of the early, it was like after What the Bleep. Mm-hmm. It was probably, I want to say 10 years ago or something, but he had I feel like he had a near death experience.
Yeah, he had like a mountain biking accident or something.
Right. and then he wanted to know what life was, and ask himself the deeper questions. And so he sat with a bunch of people. And one of the things that they found is, how to prove that compassion is in each of us is that when we watch like America's Funniest Home Videos, or in this case, Ridiculousness, in the more updated version of that, if we see somebody get hurt, we go, and it's, why are we doing that? This is something that's happening outside of you. That's a digital image that, it's this, we know what pain is, and it's a momentary burst of regard,
right?
Of like, oh, I hope they're okay. Oh my God, I can't imagine. But we feel the pain.
Yeah.
And so that's talked about in that documentary of like how we have compassion in us, and and that's what Buddhism talks about, is that at our core, we're inherently good, and good in this way is not like, pluses and minuses good. It's just like we're inherently pure, and that kind of proves it, that we don't have to know somebody or have any information, but we see pain and we react. Do you know that, that Ridiculousness wrote me about like a year ago, for a video of mine?
Wait, what is Ridiculousness?
Oh yeah. And I didn't know what it was either until about a year ago. And it's like been on for ages, but you and I just don't watch
I'm more
MTV.
of a Bob Saget purist.
Ridiculousness is hosted by a guy named Rob Dyrdek, who's a skater.
Yeah.
And he has two of his friends, and they basically just watch these videos that they find. It's like an America's Funniest Home Videos, but like all Jackass style. And it's produced by the Jackass guys, or one of the guys, Jeff Tremaine or whatever. So the show, it's a live studio audience show, where they just watch these videos and they're different themes. You would love the show. I fell in love immediately.
Don't tell me what I would love.
Well, they wrote me about this video that I have of Tiger, and Tiger is at I don't know if I ever sent it to you, but Tiger's on a swing set, and we were in Summerland on the way to Big Sur, and it was at the Father John Misty time. And we'd stop to play at a park for a minute and stretch our legs. It's one of those unscheduled pee stops that I talked about. And Tiger gets on the swing, and they're right next to him. I just noticed about 4 feet away, there's this old man with a hat over his face laying flat on a yoga mat doing pelvic thrusts in the air. and Tiger in this video, it's so perfect, but Tiger, it's like the shot starts at Tiger, and then I pan over to this guy doing these pelvic thrusts, and then back at Tiger, and Tiger is looking at him, and he makes this face like, and he's like 5 or 4, you know, he doesn't know what the hell's going on, but it's hilarious. And they don't accept submissions, Ridiculousness. So they have to find it on the internet. People go out and find stuff, and then they go, hey, can we use this?
Yeah.
And so they wrote me about that. And at one point I thought this was going to be so much more impressive to you. I was like, fucking Ridiculousness.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that sort of stuff happens where I'm like, hey, I got this brush with someone, and the person's like, I haven't heard of that person.
Right.
Like I got to find someone else who's heard of this person.
It's a huge show. It's in syndicate. I mean, they play it on Friday. They just play it all day on MTV. That's how big it is. It's like, it's probably the #1 grossing show on.
So we haven't hit the bottom of your celebrity connections, have we? That we've gotten to.
This
to
is
Rob
no
Dyrdek
celebrity.
on
No.
that.
No. Yeah. This is not.
Well, that was quite a trip up to Big Sur. Then you had a brush with Father John Misty and Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah. And then, and I kind of tried to sneak one in. I'm kind of like, oh, maybe because I have this other video where we were at Chuck E. Cheese in that same year, and I saw this guy who looked like he's having, like he was meth breakdancing with his shirt off, and it's like
in the right place.
Totally Chuck E. Cheese, just too perfect. And he's like doing these crazy moves. I mean, I'm going to show you, and obviously we'll post these or something.
Just check it out on Saturday morning on Ridiculousness.
But they ended up not using it at the last minute. I went through all the paperwork and everything, and they were just like, and
not Ridiculousness
like that.
enough.
Yeah, I guess. But this guy's breakdancing, and you see this man sort of standing in front of him, like the camera is like focused on the guy breakdancing, and he's kind of doing all these crazy moves, and there's a guy standing there in front of him. You see his back, and then he moves away, and there's this child standing there going, like he's been blocking this child that from the camera view, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And I pitched them that one afterwards too, and they were like, okay, we'll take that one too. And they didn't take either in the end. Oh yeah.
Bummer.
I know, but you're going to love this show.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's yeah. No, I mean, there's also just like insane things that you don't like. I've never told you that I made an album in England at Sir George Martin's studio, which is a cathedral. 3 years after getting off of Skid Row, I was invited to make this album with the London Symphony Orchestra. And it's one of these things like if you would have met me at a phase where I was doing music, just like the vegan thing, I would have told you in 5 minutes that I'm a musician, and you would have known all this information because it was just like so engrossed as an identity. But yeah, I mean, I got off Skid Row. I started doing the film and TV stuff. That led to a guy going, hey, I want you to make a whole record, but I know you're a big Beatles fan. I've raised this money for you to go do it at their studio. And it was insane. The place is called Air Studios London. You would not believe this. And like walking into this, like the ceilings are so high. There's the pews, like it's like old Gothic sort of like cathedral with pews and huge pipe organs and records that have been done there. Like, OK Computer was recorded there.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. And every Coldplay record leading up to maybe XY or something like that. But all the early ones recorded in this place. And almost every major soundtrack that wasn't recorded in the United States is recorded there because it's in a cathedral. And the sound is just amazing. And I found myself 3 years off of Skid Row in this position, having invested nothing and having done nothing really other than learn to meditate and kind of dream big and kind of do what's in front of me, learn how to forgive and all that kind of like get rid of the excess baggage, you know, and move through life concertedly and just have ambition at the same time, not letting that get in the way of your meditation practice.
Yeah. Would you say that the core of that is like you said before, of just not getting in your own way, where you can set up all these unintentionally set up all these roadblocks along the way that are like, why am I not getting to the thing I want? Where you're like, look at all these things you set up to block you, instead of just being open in a free channel to just receive.
Yeah. I think so. I think there is a recipe that I don't talk. I mean, it's enough.
Share your recipe.
It's enough to just be able to have the kind of agency that you're having now in your life, right? With that meditation is giving you. It's just this, there's a space that's distancing you from all of the content of your mind. And that in itself is a fucking miracle to be able to have in a lifetime. I mean,
it feels like it's just sort of you saying giving space. I mean, it literally feels like that, where it felt like everything was right here. And so how could you see anything when it's right here in front of your face? And so that literal like spaciousness, it allows you to just see the greater picture and not have to be in that mode where when you're up close to something and you just like, just really, I mean, spaciousness is just the perfect word for it.
And that could be enough. I mean, that in essence should be enough. But what I found that happens, it's interesting, is that the more you move through that and the more you're able to see, oh, wow, like I've really held this person. I have this strong tie to this person. I'm not letting them go because of thought. At this point, it's all just firing off. It's memory firing off. That is why I'm holding this person in bondage, at least in my mind. And it's hurting me. The toxicity is in me now from having this long-standing thing with this person. So being able to let that go, like what I found is that if you have a vivid imagination and you put the work in with meditation and it's consistent and you keep creating that space and you forgive where you can forgive and, you know, move through your difficult stuff, it's boundless what you can create. Like it's bound. Like the thing I said today in an Instagram post is like, it's like there's a me that's been ahead of the situation, that's designing everything. It's like, oh, this will be great. Like a surprise party.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
You know, like, oh, this will be great. He'll meet Father John Misty, you know, that kind of thing. And it's like, stop. Don't play up. I'm not, you know, I mean, I mention all this stuff. I'm not a fucking celebrity. I don't come from that pedigree. I just gotten to meet people that I was interested in more and more by investing in meditation and doing all the recipe that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
This is like the people that you're interested in, that you would love to kick it with, or even just have a brief moment with. For me, it's happened over and over again because that's what interests me. I want to like be in their space and ask them questions or whatever, and just have an opportunity to.
Yeah. I'm imagining this idea of an equalization of where we hold each other or hold others in a higher regard because they're whatever,
right?
Because they're Rob Dyrdek. That's the last one, I promise. There's kind of this where, at least speaking personally, I perceive people that I really admire as like, they're up here.
Yeah.
And I'm down here because I'm not that. And so what it feels like, and I've experienced this personally kind of on the same, I think this is the same degree that you have, where it's just like, no, we're actually much closer than you think we are.
Right.
And you're only perceiving this person up here. So then you're going, oh, well, how could I ever reach what they've reached? How could I ever meet them? Why would they have any interest in me if I'm down here? So it's like, literally like an equalizer.
Yep.
It just like balances things out, and you start to see everybody as like, we're no different.
And that's the karma involved, or the lesson involved, I think, is like, when you do start having these experiences, is this going to keep you in bondage more? Are you going to, start using meditation? Like, we shouldn't be motivated to use meditation to have this happen necessarily, but it is what has happened for more people. So it's sort of evidentiary of the kind of long-term benefit that can come from meditation, is like why most people talk about synchronicities, or like, wow, and this thing's happened. And, and that wasn't happening in their prior life where the thoughts were just everything. It's just this theme that, among like, even Ram Dass doing the meeting with Maharaji, that thing in itself of meeting somebody that knows everything about you in that moment, that could tell you about what your thoughts were like last night, and changes your life, and you write this book that changes the world. That's, all of that stuff came from, years like of practicing meditation and working with the mind, which he had done. I think they had done over 300 trips in their life in a short amount of time.
Right.
Anyway, it's there's also that balance of
tripping balls and meditating. Yep, there's a balance.
The balance of like, okay, well, I see that this is highly creative. This can be a highly creative act, meditation, but I don't want to do it for the wrong reason. I want to keep it in the place where it's like pure and just allow things to happen. And all you have to do, as cheesy as it sounds, is dream. All you have to do is dream it up. If you have something that you want to do in this life, why people are able to do that is, I just think that the not being tethered to anything and having some sort of like a thread moving forward, or a momentum moving forward of spaciousness. And some people it just happens to, and that's maybe their karma to come into this life and be a star, a Justin Bieber or whatever, who hasn't meditated, and all the variations of Justin Bieber. It's the same thing. It's like, all right, that's a karmic thing where they were just born into that. And that comes with all of this difficulty as well. Like Justin Bieber's like now working himself out of, all of this negative karma that's
Bieber Buddha.
There it is. That's it. Yeah. That sounds like a good
I had somebody emailed me asking, and it happens sometimes, what is frequently, asking me for like advice as to how to get to where I'm at. And that being where I'm at is a full-time independent freelance artist who spends his time creating when he wants to, and then kind of has some obligations when people need things from him. But otherwise it's just like, I get freedom of that. And I hesitate to give any real advice, only give advice through experience. But the thing that I ended up just recording a voice message to him and just emailing it to him instead of trying to sit there and like write it out and then
That's
just
great.
be like, bored of my own words as I'm typing them. And so just was kind of just speaking and
and just hearing your inflections too.
yeah, for sure. And and re-experiencing it through my own voice where I was like, hold on, I have to like recall the period that, the timeline and all this stuff. But basically the thing that I think is what feels like an important thing within that is that he, in the same way that I was, he got sick of his job and started to work towards art and creating something new every day. And that, and basically that becoming a practice. And I don't think, most times I don't think artists define that as a practice when you're pouring yourself into something daily and doing it consistently. And I said to him that I feel like, because I'm so spiritual now, that the universe rewards that when the universe sees that you're living in alignment with what you want to be doing.
That's right.
That's going to be like, okay, we have a path ready for you here. We saw you kind of scrambling and not, kind of running in circles and not really going anywhere. But is this the path you want to take? We'll clear all the stuff out of the way so you can go down it freely.
Yeah. And we tried to kill you with the burning house, but you survived it. And so now show them what we got, Vanna. Yes.
Wait for it. I really wanted that to be somewhere more appropriate, but how the fuck would the Seinfeld theme ever be appropriate?
God, I'm so glad. And somebody suggested that recently.
That was a listener suggest. I forget his name, and I'm sorry, it's unfortunate.
Oh, is it Steve? No, it's
Steely.
Steely. Yeah,
Steely Dan.
Yeah, that guy.
Dan Steely. Thank you for that. And I'm sorry we're forgetting your name right now, but he's super. He's a great supporter, and I feel like anybody who wants to suggest sound effects for the soundboard, I'm willing to entertain anything, because I was just like, what the fuck else could we have on this? And someone said the bassy ass Seinfeld theme.
Well, my thought was we could ask people. It's Damon Sheely.
Damon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Damon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steely Dan.
Dan Steely.
You know what a Steely Dan is?
No.
You know the band, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know this. My mom told me. She said, it's a dildo.
Oh my God, amazing.
A Steely Dan. A Dan that's a steel rod.
Yes, yes. Wow, all these years, huh? Right under our nose.
Yeah. My thought was to ask people to create their own sound effects and email them to mysticalcynical@gmail.com and let's just see what you come up with. I mean,
we'll have the interns parse through them.
We can't think of everything.
Yeah. Have you, I know you've, I don't know, I'm about to maybe disclose something that you don't want to disclose publicly, but so I'll keep it on my end. But I would love to take psychedelics with my parents, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a scenario where that would be enough freedom of space and creating a set and setting that would make my parents feel comfortable enough. Even just my mom.
Really?
Yeah. But, and it's like,
you can't envision that scenario.
I can't envision. I mean, I could envision the scenario of setting that up, but I don't think that they would take. I don't think they would take me up on it. But like my mom tells this story of she took LSD once when she was younger, and her friends stole an ice cream truck.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And so that's the all-encompassing nature of her psychedelic experiences.
Wow.
I don't need to do that. I took LSD once and we stole an ice cream truck, and I'm like, that is not that's not it.
I just don't trust myself.
Well, it's unfortunate. And of course you can't push, people having these experiences on them. But man, I would really, really feel like that there could be some benefit there, especially, going through life through one lens and through, my mom's attempts to seek out spirituality and speak out things that were only done through the pre-establishments of men, essentially in Christianity and all the forms that it comes in, and to just not, convene with spirit and say like, what does spirit have to say?
It would be amazing. And I think you should keep your mind open to the possibility of it happening. I mean, I'm not, I'm saying don't, and I don't think you are completely closing yourself off just because you're saying you can't envision that scenario, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah. True.
And, as life continues to move forward and aging is occurring and the frailties of life are setting in, a lot can change.
You hear that, Lulu?
Yeah. And I would self-disclose. I mean, I've taken psychedelics with my mother,
Yeah.
and taken a lot of ecstasy with my mom at an earlier phase of my life. And to watch your mom at a like all my friends
At a Chuck E. Cheese?
no, but my mom like hugging and rolling around on the floor with my friends.
Yes, totally.
And just being free. And like I told her, this was back in the day. I mean, like, late 90s, early 2000s.
Almost like Seinfeld on the late 90s there. That's where I was supposed to go.
God damn it. Yeah. I told her, I got to bring you out of drug retirement for this one.
Mm-hmm.
When I first experienced MDMA, it was like and at the time I thought everyone should experience this. Mm-hmm. And now I know better. And at the same time, what MDMA produces and the ability to be in a zone that's free from fear, mm-hmm. where everything is just completely in its right place. I was like, you got to do this. And it started this sort of history of us doing this together and with my friends. And it was at a time where, like, I don't know, the rave scene, the late 90s, that culture we were involved in. And so, this is all prior to me hitting Skid Row and everything. So haven't done that since, but like the magnitude, I remember one time it was actually her and my brother and I, and the brother that you don't think exists. He seems to be this kind of figment of reality. It's like Kaiser Soze.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah. Is that a late 90s reference?
It is. Usual Suspects for anyone who hasn't seen it.
And just the conversations that can happen, mm-hmm. Are just amazing. Like the freedom and, being able to like look in your mom's eyes and say like, I can't believe, you made me. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, right. To have that wonder, to have that awe. And I mean, I've had uninhibited experiences with my parents, but it's around alcohol and it's not the same thing. So just, it's warped and it feels like a funhouse mirror version of something. And it's gross. And it's unfortunate.
I remember getting stoned with my mom once in the mid 90s. And that was the first time I'd ever gotten stoned with her. And being stoned with your mom and making peanut butter jelly sandwiches and laughing your ass off is pretty fun.
Well, I think it's great to be able to again, on kind of an equalizing thing of like bringing both of your mentalities, your experience to a similar age. Yep. And if you can even define the age, but it feels like there's a childlike sense to it. So from a parent and a child to like, let's just meet both at child here and find this a goofy experience and silly. Yeah, it's gotta be so healing.
Well, and and so that obviously would be the thrust of doing something like that. I mean, you just mentioned a really important aspect. Is there anything else?
Is in regards to doing
psychedelics with your parents? I mean, let's sell Lulu right now.
Even as I said that, I thought, I think maybe thinking about it a little bit more is I would prefer for my mom and dad to have an experience like I had in a setting that's safe, blindfolded. Like I don't necessarily want to trip with my parents. I want my parents to trip. I want them to go to the place that I've visited and see the wonder and really like the idea of selling it in that idea of like, this is the safest place you could be.
Right.
Like you are fine. Like you are safe and protected.
Yeah.
And so I think that feels more appealing, but I think that's probably just as unlikely, but who knows?
Well, I mean, does it help to sell that Johns Hopkins are doing that with people who are
it's that idea. My mom says like, I had all like still associating that as it's a party thing or it's this wild inhibition like producing event when I think that was what they grew up with largely. It was like Woodstock and all these things where people were communitively doing these experiences, which I don't think is really what it's for. It's for, you can do it ceremonially where you're in a room with a bunch of people, but everybody's having their own insular isolated experiences.
And that's like saying that the strip club is the purest expression of love.
Right.
Yeah. It's like the bastardization of using psychedelics like psilocybin, in a party scene. And that's just like getting high. It's just so far from getting high.
Right.
I mean, it just really is like getting high on marijuana is like it's heavy and light at the same time, you know, and I know it's hard to define, and you're right about that, but my aunt, used to say that, you know, and she was a recovering heroin addict. She used to say, like, I don't know how you can smoke weed. She's like, weed seems so much heavier than heroin. I'm like, and then I tried heroin later on. It's like, no, but there is a heaviness to it. And it seems like so psilocybin doesn't work with the reward center of the mind. You know, it's not tapping that thing that sugar does, and, you know, all different kinds of drugs, opiates and all that. It just bypasses that, you know, and you're able to see things clearer. Now, of course, I need to do a disclaimer every time we talk about it, that people who, you know, it's not for everyone. It's just, unfortunately, it's not for everyone. If you have a history of schizophrenia in your family, you know, or bipolar, you know, it's something to really tread lightly and do as in the most professional atmosphere possible, so you can have the kind of proper support that you deserve.
We're talking about psychedelics here?
Psychedelics, yeah, exactly. But for the general population, I mean, it is the ability to sort of step aside from the thing that you think you are and watch the thing that you think you are move past you or present itself to you. And you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is something that I buy every day. I'm feeding this thing, you know, and it's been so useful, you know, it's been so useful to have these experiences where you can, you know, have some, a break from being you.
Yeah, for sure. And not again, that kind of being really close to yourself. And even just in that, you speaking and imagined like two heads that are superimposed onto each other. So we're both seeing from the same distance. And then to have that separation where the heads get pulled apart, and now you're this separate head back here viewing this other head. Right. And it's like in the same way with meditation, where you're getting that distance, that gap, that space to notice yourself and to be like, wow, that is like, right. And I think being that close to yourself there's so much impulsivity that happens of moments where you do things that are just like, you regret afterwards. You go, why did I just do that? That was so, there wasn't a buffer or a space to consider, even for because it has to be in when you do things, you have to have there's something like microscopic amount of seconds to say like, is this what I want to do right now? And then you do it. And so I feel like there's this inherent thing that gets built in with mindfulness and that having that spaciousness around being able to consider it and to not just act so impulsively. And I have the fucking perfect story for this, that when I worked in Yosemite, whenever ago, so bad, like putting it years on things, but we worked up in this high camp in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you have to drive up there a few hours up from Yosemite Valley. And we worked in these tent cabins, and, you know, people would drive up and camp there and then go backpacking through the backcountry. And I had some friends who came down from Portland, who I was living with before I moved to Yosemite. And while we were up there, they had BB guns. And I thought it was like the coolest thing. And I was like, take me over to the Walmart right now, and I want to get a BB gun. Right. And I'm in this period in my life where a BB gun is the most exciting thing. So you can imagine the real substance that's going on in my life. And so when I was down at the high camp, they were going to come out to visit me, and I go, oh my God, bring my BB gun down. And so they drive from Portland to Yosemite. It's like 12 or 13 hours drive straight through, and they get there and they pull up, and I'm like, you know, excited to see these are my like childhood friends. They get out of the car. I'm like, where's the BB gun? Where's the BB gun? Give me the BB gun. I point it right at the girl I was dating at the time. She was my boss and my girlfriend. I point it right at her tent cabin, pump it a couple times, and just shoot it at her cabin. And I hear, ah, and I run over to her cabin, and she's sitting there holding her breast, and she lifts her breast up, or her hand off her breast, and the BB went through like the nipple. What? Well, the nipple, and then just the left of it, the areola, like right through her breast.
Holy shit.
And she's holding it stunned. I'm stunned. And then I'm mortifiedly embarrassed. Like, what, you know, just a flurry of confusion. And she wants to go to the hospital, and we're in the middle of nowhere. So we all, like I said, my friends just got here, 12-hour drive. We all get back in the car. We drive to the closest hospital, which is about 2.5 hours away in Mammoth. and she gets checked out, and it came an inch from puncturing her chest wall and going into her like lungs and being, causing far more damage than it did. It essentially is still inside of her right now. It's just, there's nothing they could do. They can't pull it out.
You're saying she can sign checks with her boob? The lead.
And so just that moment of like, they showed up. I was so excited, and a complete, rationality and awareness goes completely out of the window, and you turn into like a fucking just an idiot. And there was like, what was I trying to do there? I was trying to be funny and impressive, and like just like it's still one of the most embarrassing things that I've ever done, and still feel really, really guilty about it.
Yeah, and it feels like what's declining now and what's becoming more an endangered species is you actually acting from that place. I think the part where you and I, throughout our friendship, our long fucking friendship, have gotten into difficulties where like you'll send a text from that place that it's the same place, except without the BB gun. It's a word thing. And
it's fortunate that I haven't had more access to weapons in my life.
No kidding. I mean, the BB gun thing, like that was, I think, my regard for animals, and it came from when I lived in Kernville. I had a BB gun, and we were just out in like just open space and rocks and brush and all kinds of lizards out there. And I got this BB gun, and I just started taking aim at lizards, and shooting them, and watching that happen and kind of experiencing death. Like it wasn't enough to stop me from doing it. But at one point I remember I was coming home with friends after school, and we lived on this big dirt road. It was about a mile up on this dirt road that was a private road. And my friends are coming over, and we see this snake in the middle of the road. And I think that we ran it over on accident, but then we pulled over and we're like, oh my God, and you're a teenager, and you have all that boy hormone shit going. And we saw this struggling snake, and one of my friends grabbed it by the tail and started whipping it around while like it had just been run over. And I remember my stepdad showed up at that time, one of the best men I've ever known, who was like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, that's a living being. He's like, you have to respect animals. And he was like yelling at all of us. I never forgot it. 2 years later, I became a vegetarian. I've largely not eaten animals since then and have this relationship with it. But it was that moment left an imprint on me. Like it never even occurred to me that you can't do that, because in the boy world, in that moment, you're just like being a wild teenager or whatever, but that rupture of that, like it's lasted. Having that kind of lesson. It's been amazing, and that story is the story that you shooting somebody, I don't see you as I know you haven't been in any fights or anything like that. I just don't see you as being particularly aggressive. And I wonder how much of that moment is still in your everyday, how much like it's kind of at the wheel of your actions most of the time when it comes to gentleness or, being affectionate. Your hugs have always been really good hugs,
Thank you.
Yeah. You're an amazing hugger, and you, I think that picture that, the illustration that you made based in the photo that Lacey took of us, where you're hugging me and your eyes are closed, like that's a real hug. That's like, I'm in the moment. I want to feel this, like I'm appreciating this person and the ability to be able to do this and connect in this way. It's really beautiful.
Oh, while denying the impulse to shoot you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't feel like me. And it's amazing to be able to hold it as a place of like, God, that is an instance of, youth and lack of mindfulness and just even the reaction of my friends to be like, what the fuck did he just do? Like, we were old enough where it wasn't that like, you shot into the thing, it was just like, what the fuck? And just that giddiness and like that really that energy that I had at a very young age of wanting to impress and wanting to be an entertainer and put on a show and make, do the most wild thing and be the most ridiculousness I could be. And yeah, that's just not me anymore. And that comes from, maturity naturally, I hope, at least in age, but also, just being more cognizant of it.
Yeah. Well, I have an update to this ongoing saga of my pee thing, that we've been talking about for many episodes. So, I talked with somebody the other day and they said, I really think your pee thing, like your difficulty urinating, comes from your sexual abuse.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I've never put that together. Of course, it's like a disassociation of the mind to, your
ding dong.
I always,
Just say ding dong.
Ding dong. Okay, cool. And then my mom has also had this issue and we've always bonded over it. And I thought, okay, well, it's like some genetic thing, like where we just have difficulty urinating, but she was also molested, and this person said that was pointed out to them at one point and it really resonated and that's what they believe. And so it makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And so that's the update. Now I think it's maybe not so cool to talk shit to yourself for being able to do this. Like it's not the thing to do. So I'm going to drop that.
Have you tried standing up and peeing like nature intended? And your body's like, I am not, this is wrong. Stop it.
Yeah, maybe there is something to that.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I like the fact that we get to share these things with people and then people sit home and kind of armchair, therapize or psychologically analyze us. It's great.
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of a freebie.
Yeah.
Man, I had a therapy session yesterday where I was moved some heavy emotions and was brought to tears and hasn't been long enough where it was like, really, really needed this and could have kept going. And then just after the session had to kind of move on with my life, but I would have just rather just stayed home and bawled my eyes out. But I just been thinking a lot about my brother recently and I don't know what's specifically bringing it up, but I had a really, really vivid dream about him recently. And we went over that in my session and, all the imagery and the symbolism around all the things that occurred, but it just really made me miss him a lot. And I basically gotten to a point where I want to reach out and I want to, it's hard because not to set myself up for any sort of failure or set myself up for any disappointment. So I've considered the idea of feeling like the most concise way to do it is just sending a voice memo and keeping it really brief and concise. And I mean, I think it's extraordinarily unlikely, but there's maybe an off chance that he's listening to this show. And I mean, I'll just, I can take the opportunity to just say that I absolutely love you, Ryan, and I miss you so much. And I'm so regretful for everything that happened that led us to being separated. And I would love nothing more than for us to reconnect. And I'm willing and open to doing that in any sort of way that feels comfortable. And I'm also, prepared to accept the fact that you don't want that to be the case. So I'll just leave that right there. And just the feeling of sending that message to him that I know will directly get to him is still really scary and still really nerve wracking. But I feel like just getting to talk about it here and anywhere else is starting to kind of lessen the load and to work on it independent of actually doing it, working on it as much as possible in kind of practice scenario. And then to, work up to the point of just sending it. And I mean, the idea of just, when you send out an email or you send out some sort of correspondence where you're like, there's a lot of heavy emotion on it. Yeah. You hit that button and you send it out. And that, just having to do everything, but just accept everything to accept the no outcome or whatever, release any sort of outcome you might hold for it.
Yeah, well, beautiful. I mean, this is a moment that's rarely on air. For people to take in, especially people who've been, thank God. Thank God. I was going to say the Seinfeld one was really palate cleansed, but no, I also, and I was like, I felt that thing towards the end going like, oh, do the Seinfeld one. And I was like, what? No, we're going to keep this shit fucking pure because this is like a rare occasion for people to see this level of vulnerability.
Yeah. I mean, when I started talking about it in therapy yesterday, it was very just like, oh, I'm going to talk about this because it's what's come up, and had no sense of it going to actually elicit any sort of emotion. And even just again here, I actually was curious. I'm like, if I talk about it again, will I still be brought to tears? And obviously these words that I want to say to him hold so much emotion and mean so much that, to me, it feels right to know that there's such a level of emotion attached to it. And it feels like this has to be expelled in some way or the other, or exercised in some way or the other. And again, like just sort of working on it here and anywhere else I can get a chance to talk about it is the healing, because once, like I said, once I do send it out, then there is going to be some level of attachment to it of like, how is this going to be received?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say that in recent correspondence with my brother, who
the real one or the fake
one? Ben Carpenter down in Irvine, who works for Surf City Steelworks. He's long been in alcohol. And I've been in rehab, so it's a funny thing. He gets him drunk, I get him sober. It's a perfect team. Yes. I've been talking to him lately, and what happens when I talk to him is like, this is a thing all in itself. Like there's nothing else like this. This person in your life, you rode out the early existence with this person. You were, even throughout all of your difficulties, which have stung and which you're working to move past now, there was, you guys looked out for each other and you experienced and saw the same things in your household and around you. And you're working with a lot of the same lenses. And when I talk to my brother now, it's like, oh my God, there is nothing in this world that feels like this. When I connect with him, it's like, we know our story more than anyone else. Yeah. It's like shorthand reference, is almost not even necessary. It's just an intuitive thing of like, I'm in a space right now with somebody who I have my earliest memories with, who
came from the same vagina.
Yeah. Right.
So
there's that.
Wild.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And so it feels so good now at this point to talk to him, and he's a father and has 2 amazing kids and an amazing wife. He's been with for like 17 years and he's 5 years younger than me, basically. He's got a great life. He's a salt of the earth person, but in raising our families and going these different directions, living in different cities, like it's a world apart. Yeah. And so us connecting at this point over a lot of similar interests, and he's kind of moving toward some of the things that I've been working with. And I just stay out of the way of being an expert on these things, like, because I really want to cultivate like him having his own experience and just be a support with it. But my point is that it's a beautiful thing to have. And the work that you're doing right now is actually for you, even though no matter what happens with him, this work that you're doing is the healing thing for you to be able to know that your intention and the possibility and the potential in you is to love this deeply, to transcend old wounds, things that have largely shaped your character, that you've moved beyond, like that it was the reverse North Star, like, of your life, like move away from that.
Right.
It's for you. And the thing is that like, whether he takes the invitation or not, however he takes this work is so important for us to do. And we got to do it without the result being intact.
Yes. That feels exactly right. And I feel like this is one of my greatest tests to know, to have a preconceived notion of how it's going to be responded to and how it's going to be reacted to, and make peace with that, and make just stay right here and make peace with myself. And having, like, as we do in relationships where we just need that other person. Like when I spilled wine on that guy in Yosemite, all I needed him to do was tell me it was okay.
Yeah.
And I never got that. And I'm still talking about it fucking 12 years later.
Right.
And so, just getting to a point where you can feel just peace within yourself.
Totally, man. And that, that thing is, the love that you seek actually from your brother is the love that's inside of you.
Yeah.
It's what you're doing right now. And so of course, it'd be really great if this has a happy middle, it'd be really great. But you found the love that you're looking for from him in this moment by doing this work. That's the truth of the matter. And
it's also, I want him to experience the level of psychedelic depth that I have as well.
Right.
Like that's what I want for people that I love. I want them to get out of their own ways, to know that they've, and I don't want it to sound like judgment and say that, whenever you want something for someone, you're assuming that they don't have it in some form.
Right. Exactly.
And so
God, that's really good work too, man. Way to go.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's just great. It's so amazing, that experience to have. But, again, it's not for everybody. It's amazing for me. That's fine. Yeah.
Do you feel, not to just bring this back to do you feel like this is the result of all of what you're doing in this amount of time? Like
it feels like it. Yeah. Cause I mean, like just having that dream that was really vivid. I think that I'm not often one who attaches to dreams. I've like, even when people tell me their dreams, I'm immediately bored and disinterested and try to avoid doing that to other people. But, there was something really significant about this dream. Like it was just like, hey, remember this, like this is your next thing you need to deal with.
Yeah.
And so, and then, I mean, again, to take stock in anything that's happening is in the past several weeks, I've started to meditate. In the past week, I've not focused so much on work. I've given myself space to just move so much slower. Like this conscious choice around slowing down, and letting go of my sense of scarcity around time.
Right.
Where because they lose in school from X to X, and in that time, I'm like, everything needs to get done in that time, and then without fail, that time seems like it runs out always more quicker than it should.
Yes.
And so I've just reframed it around like, what if there was no rush? What if there was no scarcity around, like, if you don't do this, you run out of time, you can't do this, of just alleviating myself of that. And just, again, having that spaciousness, moving everything further away from my face.
Totally.
And just taking care of myself in a way that feels new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shit. And to think
shit.
to think that, I mean, certainly the exposure to meditation was something that externally, it was an external, excuse me. It was an external pointing to, hey, try this thing. But the possibility of all this being in you, like this is all work that you're doing with yourself, is like, how could we not want to do this? This is like, how could we not want to have revelations like this? And it is a good advertisement for investigating in meditation. I mean, that you could turn around. We've all known from this show, we're in 18, but in at least the 16 prior, there's been this reference of the brother as being a focal point of where your cynicism has come from, and it's the title of the show. I mean, it's that deep, and to watch this turnaround in such a short amount of time is exactly what can happen by having an earnest practice, and it's all endogenous.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's also speaks to and we'll have to get more into this once we learn about it, but that concept of the human design, who's been kind of brought into our sphere by Viana. It's the depth. I don't know if, I'm sure people who listen to this fucking show are familiar with the human design, but from what the limited I understand it, this guy through meditation, channeled all of this information from some alien source, and has created this whole curriculum and system around how we, based on when we were born, who we are and how we relate with other people. And it's just, the depth of it is insane. And I'm still, it's one of those things where once you associate with, you can find answers and everything within it. So,
when Viana went over it the other day, Like
Yeah.
it was so incredibly accurate that it was more accurate than any astrology or Chinese astrology that had ever
And when you see the the graphs that they create, where you're like, you're a reflector in the supercharger vassal of your, it's just like mind blowing. But that basically saying, I'm often skeptical and hesitant to receive outside influence through a teacher, through a guru and stuff, where I'm like really stubborn around that. And so like you said, to kind of get all this endogenously around, like this practice came with very little me taking, like you were the one who was just like, we're going to get you there and you were going to show me how to meditate. And then you never did. But just for me, like, it felt like if you had, there would have been still some resistance or whatever. But it feels like the fact that I just one day was like, I'm going to fucking sit and finally do this, that I had to get to that. I had to arrive to that place myself.
And you worked with the Waking Up app. Is that what you do? Or do you just sit?
No, I just sit.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Yeah. Well, I'd love to do a sit with you.
Yeah.
I haven't sat down.
Oh, well, right. Yeah. Yes. Well, and I think that's also like that felt like a nice introduction to, and I think, it's interesting. What is sitting with someone else versus sitting by yourself? Is there any real added benefit, or do you feel like something happens? Like what if an entire country decided they're going to meditate at one point?
I think that the thing that everyone reports, and whether it's true or not, but I've heard it just over and over, is that meditating in a group, there's a different thing that goes on than doing it by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, because I like them both. Yeah. And it's just, just a different flavor of ice cream. You know, I don't just like one flavor. But that time sitting with you in the group and doing the kind of guide and pointing out, I think, in that early phase of like what to look for, how to ground yourself, what to establish, mindfulness anchors and that you can rely on, and then just kind of allowing things to be was maybe some of the early foundation work. But like, you've done it all of your own, and you have everything to be proud of within that. And it's that's why it's so linked with having confidence, is because if you can do what you've done and have the kind of results that you've had in a short amount of time and have it all come from your effort.
Yeah. Right. And so not be like, if it was a teacher, then you're solely like, totally, I need to get more time with this teacher and everything. Yeah. Yeah. That makes me just think, and I'm sure it would be helpful for a lot of people, but do you have guided meditations on internet somewhere?
Yeah. No, I have one on, so there's a Love is the Author podcast that's on Spotify and Apple as well. And it's Lacey's and my podcast from last year. And we did about 11 or 12 of them, and pretty low, like we didn't use microphones. It was just my phone, which ended up sounding really good.
Yeah, but it sounds better than this shit.
No, there's
hundreds of dollars.
There's like pops and stuff like that. There's vocal pops and all that.
And maybe some.
Yeah. And there's also like a lot of the stories that you've heard here now are probably going to be there, but it's worth a take. And since I'm mentioning it, so there is a guided meditation in that. There's like episode 3 is a bonus episode where I do one that a lot of people I work with, I suggest work with that, because it's like sitting with me. And I do a little bit. I do like a talk ahead of time, so I don't just jump right into the guide. So you have to scroll ahead and find just the spot. So there's one there, and there's one on my Instagram page in the Reels section or whatever.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Where you can have a visual. It's like sitting with me across from me. And once again, I talk about meditation about 10 minutes, but then we do one. So thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, for sure.
And I need to do a new one, and I would love to actually, we had talked about at one point doing one here, and our idea many episodes ago was that I'd record a legit guided meditation, and then Daren would have time with it to do his cynical voice in the background of all the prompts.
It's still a great idea, but obviously we came to conclusion that we didn't want to demean or demoralize or to take away from the importance of it. It's from like a comedic bit standpoint, it's funny, but I see even more clearly now of just like it's still good. But it's not.
It's good. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. It's just that's
the book we're going to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Amazing. And my thought is that a lot of the prompts that I use are very similar. There's this trajectory, there's this formula that moves forward. And if people hear it that way for the first time and then they hear your thing,
Right.
they might store that and go like, oh, this is where Daren.
Well, you
cracked
know,
the
that's
joke.
funny because that's what Lacey was telling me, where she said maybe a couple of episodes ago, she was listening and you were deep in a story.
Yeah.
And there was like a pause and
Yeah.
she thought, oh, this is when Daren says something and I didn't. And so then she made up the thing, the joke, the rib, whatever. And so if anyone else is doing that out there, I'm grateful and I apologize if that feels like you're now like taking someone who's giving really heartfelt stories and wisdom and you can't help but slip in your snide little fucking remarks. But, yeah.
Maybe we can do a bonus episode here where I just do a legit one, you know.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
offer it. Yeah.
No, I think that's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So
Do you know
that'll be
originally
coming.
I don't think we ever talked about this, but when Jamie and I were incepting this podcast early on, I thought about, I have a closet upstairs in my bedroom that has like carpet. I mean, my whole upstairs is carpet. It's not great, but, there's a closet that's just big and has like, because it goes above the staircase, it has this kind of like, this 45-degree angle that you could sit on. And I thought for acoustics, I was like, oh, this would be perfect. It's like padded and it would be sound amazing. So originally I thought Jamie and I would sit in the closet and do this pod, and it was going to be called Jamie and Daren Are in the Closet.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's crazy because like that wouldn't have been mystical, cynical centric up front. So maybe we wouldn't even have had that as like, as the kind of guide, the North Star of what the show is. So yeah, I mean, there in some other universe, there's a show called Jamie and Daren in the Closet.
Exactly, man.
But I was thinking that's where we could record the meditation show, be in the dark,
perfect.
and it'll sound really good. So.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, we'll do that in the next couple. We'll do that. I'll vow to do that in the next week.
Yes, perfect.
People have been asking, and the ones that I have out there, I think there's a bunch of people have been using them, and it'd probably just be nice to have one that starts directly. It is what it is. I don't do any talk, and it's me now from a different place of pointing out different things.
Me now.
Keep it fresh. Me now.
Can you go over the thing you put in your stories yesterday that sort of birthed the idea of us doing like a mystical, cynical book around the Dixie cup analogy?
Oh yeah, right.
You remember it?
Yeah. So it was like I was working in a session and I don't know where the shit comes from, just like this show. And it was like, I said, guilt is a Dixie cup. Mm-hmm. It's like a Dixie cup. It's a single time use. And after that, if we hold on to it, it becomes a shame mug that's just in your cabinet that you use day after day and you sip from this thing. But guilt is meant to just be this sting for a second, to be a corrective measure and a one-time use. Oh, I get the point, and you throw it away and it's done, rather than becoming a shame mug. You can't call I'm guilty day after day. I'm guilty. It's not that. That's a repetition of the theme of guilt that's become shame.
Yes.
So, and then we talked about doing a book based in that. We've been talking about various ideas for a book together. But the most recent one is like sort of a journal-ish thing, right? Or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's anything is going to involve so much work, and I can immediately be like, that's a good idea to actually do it. It's like so much work. Who knows?
I know.
Who fucking knows? Yeah.
Well, long lives.
Well, because Jamie said that, put that story up, and I, as I often do, I was like, that's really beautiful, and that's like such a great analogy and so concise, and always for me, for an individual standpoint, it's just like I get it. The little Dixie cup, it's like this ubiquitous thing that we can all associate with. And then I wrote to him and I said, I always feel guilty when I use Dixie cups, and just like taking the piss out of it. But hopefully behind that, that's, I think, what oftentimes people run into having a misinterpretation of me is that there's love and appreciation, that my ribs and my sting, my barbs, there's a soft little, soft center in the middle.
Oh yeah. I've come to know who you are, and those things actually make me laugh on the spot.
Yes. More
times than they ever go like, what did you say? Yeah. Like I just very rarely, and that says more about me in that moment anyway than you, when I take offense or momentary, and we had a thing recently, and I talked about, I think in the last episode, but we worked it out in real time. And it was just such a testament to the regard that we both have for each other, and not wanting to at any moment have any of us think that there isn't just this enduring love in almost everything that we're involved in together and separately. Like,
yeah, I think knowing and maybe considering people, everyone at the center of you is love. And then there's a lot of external things. And you go, okay, well, that's all your traumas. And that's everything that informed you. That's all your just everything bad that happened. And so like to be able to somehow x-ray into people, like past all that shit that came out nasty and judgmental and everything, and be like, no, there's love in the center there, but you just got a lot of, you got life experience
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, this is a good spot to end.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
Oh, patreon.com/mysticalcynical.
Yeah.
If you guys, thank you so much for everyone who's pledged. I do have some merch on the way that we're going to send out to people as a thank you and maybe as an incentive for other people to join. I don't want to reveal too much about it because I'm really excited. Jamie doesn't even know about it.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's your standard fare merch type stuff. It's not anything fucking spectacular, but yeah, I'm excited about that. And then just for people to be able to represent us wherever they are, we got a bunch of stickers to send out and stuff. So yeah, we'll look forward to that soon.
It's coming. And that album that I talked about, if you want to look it up.
Oh, sweet.
And I don't know if the whole thing is available, but I have copies that I think that at some point, I have like a huge amount of these copies of this record that came out, but nothing happened. So that was one of the things I wanted to say earlier on, that like, I got to do this thing in the Beatles studio, my favorite band of all time, like who I know more about than any other band. And I'm just like, it's like how people are with Star Wars. I am with the Beatles, and getting to do that. It only showed me the possibility, and it didn't go anywhere necessarily, but it showed what you can dream up and just don't get attached to the result.
Well, it's also what it meant to you happening as opposed to what it means afterwards, and living in some sort of like form that you can continue to relive through and share with people and stuff like that, where it was like, no, it happened. It's up to you to re-experience it when it happened in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the band was called the Holliston Stops, HOLLISTON Stops. And the record's called Lyndhurst Road. That's LYNDHURST Road. And I think that you can find it on iTunes, but there's a making of also of us going there. And I take people through Skid Row where I was before we go.
There's video footage of this stuff?
Yeah.
I cannot be learning about this stuff at the same time everybody else is.
No, that's the best.
I guess.
No. And so, somebody made a documentary about it. And I think it's on YouTube. The Return of Holliston Stops, I think, would be the thing that you would look up. I'm pretty sure it's still up there.
Okay.
But it's like a 20-minute or something like that.
We'll get the interns to dig that up.
Yeah.
Put it on the socials.
Yeah. And I'm like 3 years sober, and I'm in another state of consciousness, and it's like 2006.
What's your sideburn situation?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, massive. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And also I'm a different weight.
Yeah,
that's for sure. And I'm carrying still, I think, a lot of the energy. I hadn't worked through everything yet. But dreams are coming true, and I'm seeing what's possible. Anyway, that's a record that's out there, and I have hard copies. It's a double record. The first record, it's all we were a Beatlesy pop band. Mm-hmm. So to get to go do that over there and work with the London Symphony Orchestra is insane. The second record is all just the instrumental orchestrals.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's like I have a record of my classical music, basically. And there's like sitar music in it. It's insane what we got to do.
Well, if anyone pledges $100 a month to that, you'll receive that as your gift.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much I want to thank you right now for initiating all this. Like, I just don't think that this would have happened. Well, just this podcast, like you put it all together. You ordered the equipment without me knowing, like we talked about it, and then, how great it would be. And it was like one conversation. The next thing I knew, there's podcast equipment coming on the way.
Yeah. Welcome to a friendship with Daren Thomas.
Yeah. Well, and I to be honest, I mean, I've looked at I know some of your history prior to me being in your life, and I just hadn't seen you ever sort of, post with anybody else in the posts on your thing. Like, it's been really about your art. And this is a point in your life where you've opened yourself up to sharing an experience ongoing with someone else. And I couldn't be more honored.
Well, you're welcome. And of course, that aside, I think that this is a testament to who you are in my life. It's like, I haven't consciously been like, not going to put that person on, not going to share this. Like,
Right.
there's like you came in and I saw the value in this, and it just, I mean, talk about like seeing synchronicities of us, the way we ended up living to get next to each other, and together is my future goal. But yeah, it's just, it all makes sense to me. And none of it was a struggle. None of it was any sort of level of like wavering, where I feel like when I'm decisive about something, I go for it and just start fucking getting on Amazon and start ordering everything. And let's like make this happen. There's no reason that there should be any waffling or wavering around things that you feel, if you feel an immediate charge from it, go for it.
Right, man. That's great. It's a great message. And you can find these videos now on YouTube. We're recording this right now.
A goddamn intern, because after Jamie leaves and goes and does whatever the fuck he does, has lunch with his partner, I'm here like I'm here fucking diddling all this shit. But no, it's I love it so much. And these will be on YouTube starting. There was episode 17 and now 18.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, man.
Thank you.
I'll see you there.
Okay.
And thank you all to our audience.
I love you. Love you. Love you. Love you.
Love you.